Book I, Chapter 3 of On the Education of an Orator, by Quintilian, translated by H.E. Butler. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The skillful teacher will make it his first care, as soon as a boy is entrusted to him, to ascertain his ability and character. The surest indication in a child is his power of memory. The characteristics of a good memory are twofold. It must be quick to take in and faithful to retain impressions of what it receives. The indication of next importance is the power of imitation, for this is a sign that the child is teachable, but he must imitate merely what is taught, and must not, for example, mimic some one's gait or bearing or defects. For I have no hope that a child will turn out well who loves imitation merely for the purpose of raising a laugh. He who is really gifted will also above all else be good. For the rest, I regard slowness of intellect as preferable to actual badness. But a good boy will be quite unlike the dullard and the sloth. My ideal pupil will absorb instruction with ease and will even ask some questions, but he will follow rather than anticipate his teacher. Precocious intellects rarely produce sound fruit. By the precocious I mean those who perform small tasks with ease, and thus, emboldened, proceed to display all their little accomplishments without being asked. But their accomplishments are only of the most obvious kind. They string words together and trot them out boldly and undeterred by the slightest sense of modesty. Their actual achievement is small, but what they can do they perform with ease. They have no real power, and what they have is but of shallow growth. It is as when we cast seed on the surface of the soil. It springs up too rapidly, the blade apes the loaded ear, and yellows ere harvest time, but bears no grain. Such tricks please us when we contrast them with the performer's age, but progress soon stops, and our admiration withers away. Such indications once noted, the teacher must next consider what treatment is to be applied to the mind of his pupil. There are some boys who are slack, unless pressed on. Others again are impatient of control. Some are amenable to fear, while others are paralyzed by it. In some cases the mind requires continued application to form it, in others this result is best obtained by rapid concentration. Give me the boy who is spurred on by praise, delighted by success, and ready to weep over failure. Such an one must be encouraged by appeals to his ambition. Rebuke will bite him to the quick. Honor will be a spur, and there's no fear of his proving indolent. Still, all our pupils will require some relaxation, not merely because there is nothing in this world that can stand continuous strain, and even unthinking and inanimate objects are unable to maintain their strength unless given intervals of rest, but because study depends on the good will of the student, a quality that cannot be secured by compulsion. Consequently, if restored and refreshed by a holiday, they will bring greater energy to their learning and approach their work with greater spirit, of a kind that will not submit to being driven. I approve of play in the young. It is a sign of a lively disposition, nor will you ever lead me to believe that a boy who is gloomy and in a continual state of depression is ever likely to show alertness of mind in his work, lacking, as he does, the impulse most natural to boys of his age. Such relaxation must not, however, be unlimited. Otherwise the refusal to give a holiday will make boys hate their work, while excessive indulgence will accustom them to idleness. There are, moreover, certain games which have an educational value for boys, as for instance when they compete in posing each other with all kinds of questions which they ask turn and turn about. Games, too, reveal character in the most natural way. At least that is so if the teacher will bear in mind that there is no child so young as to be unable to learn to distinguish between right and wrong, and that the character is best moulded when it is still guiltless of deceit and most susceptible to instruction, for once a bad habit has become ingrained, it is easier to break than bend. There must be no delay, then, in warning a boy that his actions must be unselfish, honest, self-controlled, and we must never forget the words of Virgil: "So strong is custom formed in early years." I disapprove of flogging, although it is the regular custom and meets with the acquiescence of Chrysippus, because, in the first place, it is a disgraceful form of punishment and fit only for slaves, and is in any case an insult, as you will realize if you imagine its infliction at a later age. Secondly, if a boy is so insensible to instruction that reproof is useless, he will, like the worst type of slave, merely become hardened to blows. Finally, there will be absolutely no need of such punishment if the master is a thorough disciplinarian. As it is, we try to make amends for the negligence of the boy's pedagogus, not by forcing him to do what is right, but by punish him for not doing what is right. And though you may compel a child with blows, what are you to do with him when he is a young man, no longer amenable to such threats, and confronted with tasks of far greater difficulty? Moreover, when children are beaten, pain or fear frequently have results of which it is not pleasant to speak, and which are likely subsequently to be a source of shame, a shame which unnerves and depresses the mind, and leads the child to shun and loathe the light. Further, if inadequate care is taken in the choices of respectable governors and instructors, I blush to mention the shameful abuse which scoundrels sometimes make of their right to administer corporal punishment, or the opportunity not infrequently offered to others by the fear thus caused in the victims. I will not linger on this subject. It is more than enough if I have made my meaning clear. I will content myself with saying that children are helpless and easily victimized, and that therefore no one should be given unlimited power over them. I will now proceed to describe the subjects in which the boy must be trained if he is to become an orator, and to indicate the age at which each should be commenced. End of chapter 3.